I went on a camping trip a few months ago. I thought it would help me escape city life. I wanted to be alone in the woods and find some peace. I'm 35 and work as a freelance graphic designer. I wasn't a pro camper, but I knew how to set up a tent and make a fire. When I arrived at the site, I couldn't wait to get started. I set up my camp. It was quiet, just me and the trees. The air smelled like pine and I could hear a river nearby. As the sun set and darkness fell, I built a fire and sat down. That's when I heard it. Laughter. At first I thought it was other campers nearby, just a group enjoying their night. I tried to brush off the uneasy feeling creeping in, but it wouldn't go away. Around midnight I heard it again. Distant laughter mixed with rustling sounds. Footsteps were soft against the ground. I felt my heart race. I thought about going to check it out, but I told myself to stay put. Maybe it was all in my head. I put more wood on the fire and tried to focus on doodling in my notepad, but my eyes kept drifting to the shadows. The next night was stranger. I woke up to my flashlight flickering. I thought the batteries must be dying. When I stepped outside my tent, my backpack was unzipped. I remembered zipping it up before bed. My heart pounded as I looked inside. Nothing was missing, but my snacks were all rearranged. Maybe animals? I tried to convince myself, but I felt foolish for being scared. Still, I couldn't shake the feeling something was off. By the third night, that laughter grew louder. It was no longer joyful, it felt threatening. The woods were silent except for that laughter. I wanted to remind myself why I was there, to find inspiration. But sleep wouldn't come. That's when I saw them. Figures moving between the trees, shadows slipping too fast to catch a clear look. I felt chills down my spine. I wasn't sure what I was seeing. My throat tightened. I yanked out my flashlight and shouted, "Who's there?" It echoed, but silence came back. In the morning I found something strange. A note was pinned to a tree, but the writing looked like scratches, not any words I could read. My palms were sweaty. I wanted to leave, but I thought about how silly I would look. Still, I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. Then came the last night. I was anxious but felt I had to stay. As I sat in my tent, I heard that laughter again. It was right outside. I peeked from the tent, but there was no one there. Then I heard a voice whisper my name. My heart raced at that moment. I spun around, but only darkness met me. I made it through the night, but I left as early as I could. Now I wonder if I escaped the chaos of life, or if I stepped into something I couldn't understand. Was it real, or did I let my mind play tricks on me? That trip haunted me. I think I'll never forget it. Chapter 2. The phone call. Days turned into weeks, but I couldn't shake the memory of that trip. I found myself avoiding the woods. A friend invited me to a barbecue. I tried to look cheerful. "You've got to get out, unwind," she said, but my thoughts were still tangled in the shadows of those trees. Just as I was starting to relax, my phone buzzed. It was a number I didn't recognize. I hesitated, but answered. Maybe it was nothing. "Hello?" I said, trying to keep my voice steady. There was a pause, then a crackling sound. "Help!" The voice was faint, almost lost. They're coming for..." I felt my blood run cold. "Who is this?" I yelled, but only met silence. I waited, hoping for more, but all I got was a dead line. My heart raced. It couldn't be connected to my trip. But the fear bubbled back up. Something was wrong. I called back, but the number was unlisted. I stared at the screen, trying to find some kind of clue. Nothing. My mind raced with wild thoughts. What if it was someone from the woods? What if whatever haunted me there was now seeping into my life? I needed to know what was going on. I didn't want to appear foolish, but curiosity and fear pushed me to act. I pulled out the map I used for the trip and traced my finger along the path leading to the campsite. Memories flashed, the shadows, the laughter. I followed the route with my eyes, and then my gaze landed on the note I'd found. Scratches. I grabbed a pencil and started sketching what I'd seen. The lines were jagged and rough, like something desperate. I felt a chill wash over me. Later that night, I couldn't sleep. I replayed the call in my head. Help. That word echoed like a haunting refrain. I decided to take the map and head to the nearest park ranger station the following day. Maybe they'd heard something about missing people or strange occurrences in the woods. Morning came too soon. I drove to the station with that unsettling feeling still clutching my gut. As I walked in, the ranger looked up from his desk. He had a tired face marked by years in the woods. "Can I help you?" he asked, sizing me up. "I need to know about the location near this campsite," I started. "There were strange things happening when I was there. Laughter at night. I heard someone whispering my name. And I got a weird phone call." His expression shifted. "You aren't the first to report strange noises or feelings of being watched, especially around that area," he said slowly. My stomach sank. "What do you mean?" He leaned back in his chair, the weariness in his voice palpable. "It's an area with a history. Some say the spirits of those who didn't make it out still linger." I thought of that distant laughter, almost mocking in its tone. My mind raced back to the figures between the trees. "Can you tell me more?" Just then the door swung open. A woman hurried in, her eyes wide with fear. "You need to help me," she shouted. "They're coming for me." I exchanged glances with the ranger, my heart pounding. What had I stumbled into? Chapter 3. The woman's plea. The ranger's face shifted from surprise to concern. He stood up, the chair scraping against the floor. "What do you mean they're coming for you?" he asked, voice firm yet calm. The woman's breath came in short gasps. "I was camping alone not too far from here. I saw something. At first I thought I was just imagining things, but then, in the night, it was worse. I heard voices, whispers, and shadows moving around my tent. I felt a cold sweat start to form on my skin. Her panic felt all too familiar. "What did you see?" I asked, hoping for clarity. She glanced back at the door as if expecting something to burst through it. "I don't know. It was just a figure moving through the trees. At first it seemed harmless, but when I tried to leave, something called my name." The ranger frowned. "Did you report this to anyone?" "No. I thought I was losing my mind, but then just a while ago I got a call too." Her eyes locked onto mine. "They asked for help." I swallowed hard. "You too? What did they say?" "Just my name." And then it went silent. She hugged herself, visibly trembling. "I think they know I'm here." The ranger looked at me, his gaze heavy with implication. "You're not safe being here. If you heard your name, that means something is trying to reach you. It's best to stay away from the woods." But that was impossible. I felt the pull towards the forest like a magnet in my chest. "We need to find out what's going on," I said, partially convincing myself. "We can't just ignore this." The woman's eyes widened with fear. "You don't understand. It's not just noise, it feels like they want something from me, and it's getting stronger." I took a step closer, determined. "Then we need to find answers. We have to go together. If what you said is true, we might be able to stop whatever is happening. We can't just run." She hesitated, looking back at the ranger. "He won't let us." "Actually," he said, folding his arms, "I can't let you go in there. It's against protocol. I've lost too many people already." Frustrated, I turned to him. "But what if someone is in trouble? What if it's worse than we think?" The ranger sighed, his shoulders dropping. "There are stories, ones that no one wants to believe. But deep down, I can't help but think you'll get lost among them. Others have tried to confront it." A silence stretched between us, heavy with unspoken fears. "If we don't go," I said, "we'll always wonder what could have happened." With a nervous glance at the woman, I finally turned back to the ranger. "Please, if there's even a chance we can help, we have to try." Just then my phone buzzed in my pocket, vibrating like a warning. I pulled it out and my heart dropped. An unknown number. With trembling fingers I answered. "Hello?" Silence. Then the distorted voice sliced through the air. "You shouldn't have gone back." And just like that, the line went dead. Who was it? The woman asked, her eyes wide with fear. I don't know, I muttered, dread pooling in my stomach. Then, the door slammed shut behind me. Something outside was watching. Chapter 4. The Shadows in the Forest. I spun around, heart racing. The door had swung shut with a force that felt unnatural. The ranger dashed to the door, flinging it open. What the hell? He shouted into the darkened patio outside. Nothing. Just darkness. Close it, the woman cried, eyes wild. They'll hear us. I grabbed the door and pulled it shut, my pulse pounding in my ears. The ranger locked it, scanning the windows. We need to get you both somewhere safe. This isn't a joke anymore. But I couldn't shake the sense of urgency. No, we need to go now, I insisted. We can't wait. Are you both sure? The ranger asked, disbelief flickering across his face. Yes, the woman cried. If they want me, then I'm the one they'll go after. I nodded, a mixture of fear and resolve settling in my gut. Let's take your truck. If we hurry, we can get close to where I saw them. As we stepped outside, the forest loomed before us, thick and shadowy. The air felt different, charged with anticipation. I hesitated. Do you think we're being followed? The ranger said, Stay close. We can't afford to split up. Stick together and follow my lead. The woman shivered, perhaps feeling the chill of the air or the weight of what lay ahead. I felt her tremble next to me, the uncertainty palpable. Keep moving, I urged her, but she remained still, gazing toward the woods. Something's out there, she whispered, fear coating her words. I followed her gaze and caught a flicker of movement in the trees, a shadow, too quick to identify. I blinked, convincing myself it was just my imagination. As we approached the ranger's truck, a shattering sound echoed through the still night, a branch cracking like a gunshot. It came from deeper in the woods. My chest tightened. Get in, the ranger yelled, his voice unnaturally loud against the stillness. We jumped in and he hot-wired the engine like he'd done it 100 times before. As he turned the headlights on, the beams cut through the darkness. They illuminated the hulking shapes of trees and bushes, casting eerie shadows that slithered across the forest floor. I couldn't shake the notion that something was hiding just beyond the light. What direction? The ranger asked, eyes fixed ahead. Straight back, I said, pointing. About a mile in, that's where I camped. Hold on, he commanded, revving the engine. We sped through the winding gravel path, the tires kicking up rocks and dust. The tension in the cab was suffocating. I stared into the trees, searching for any signs of movement. And then, my phone buzzed again, this time vibrating violently against my thigh. I fumbled to pull it out, breath hitching. It was the same unknown number. My hands shook as I answered. Hello? But all I heard was static, then a slow whisper creeping through the line. You shouldn't have come. The voice was chilling, wrapping around my spine like ice. Instinctively, I looked out the window into the darkness. The trees around us felt alive, twisting and shifting. The ranger slammed on the brakes. What now? Your phone. It's connected to this, the woman shouted, panic rising again. That's when I saw it. Two glowing eyes peering from the shadows. They were watching us. I barely had time to reach for the door before the figure stepped into the beam of light. It was humanoid, but wrong in every way. Its limbs were too long, twisted and sinewy. My heart dropped as I realized it wasn't just watching. It was waiting. Drive, I yelled, but the ranger was frozen in fear. The figure took a step closer, and then everything went dark. Chapter 5. Into the Abyss. I gasped, the suffocating blackness engulfing us. It felt like I was buried alive, plunged into a void without sound or light. I could barely breathe as panic clawed at my insides. Had we been attacked? My instinct screamed for me to fight, to scream, to bolt, but I was frozen. Then the truck's headlights flickered back on, revealing chaos. I saw the ranger's face twisted in fear, his hands gripping the wheel like it might save him. The woman was pressed against the window, wide-eyed, breathing in quick, shallow bursts. What happened? I shouted, trying to cut through the fear. The ranger's voice trembled. I don't know, it just went out. I glanced outside. The shadows had shifted, living creatures that moved just outside the light's reach. I felt them staring at us, but I couldn't see anything clearly. Go, drive, I urged again. He turned the key in the ignition, but the engine sputtered and died. The woman shook her head, tears welling in her eyes. We're trapped, we're lost. No. I slammed my fist against the dashboard. We have to move. I could almost feel the presence of the figure again, that unnatural thing hiding just beyond our reach. The night seemed to grow heavier, oppressive. In a desperate attempt to regain control, the ranger grabbed a flashlight from the glove box. He flicked it on, then shined the beam through the windshield. The forest responded, each flicker of light revealing gaps between the trees, each rustle a whisper of something lurking. See anything? I asked, heart racing again. Just darkness, he muttered. Let's try again. We need to get out of here. Suddenly, a sharp tap against the side of the truck sent us all jumping. What was that? I whispered, barely breathing. The ranger's body tensed, his eyes locked on the sound. I don't know. Stay quiet, he ordered. We fell silent just in time to hear the unmistakable sound of something scratching at the door, long nails clawing against metal. Each scrape sent shivers crawling down my spine. My own heart pounded like a drum in my ears. Please, please, the woman whimpered, squeezing her eyes shut. Before I could wrap my mind around what was happening, the ranger flung the door open, shining the flashlight into the darkness. At first there was nothing, just trees swaying gently in the wind. But that was when I noticed movement out of the corner of my eye, multiple shapes shifting silently between the trees. Get back in, I shouted, as I pulled the woman closer before we both could think. The ranger hesitated. I can't see anything, we need to move. But just then the flashlight beam caught another pair of glowing eyes, not far from where the original figure had been, only this time, there were 5 pairs of eyes watching us. Drive! Now! I screamed. The ranger jumped back into the cab, slamming the door. His hands were shaking as he twisted the key once more. The engine roared to life. But as he put it in gear, a loud crash echoed behind us. A massive branch fell, blocking our path forward. We need to get out of here, now! The ranger yelled. And then, as if in response to our panic, the eyes began to close in. The creatures were coming. Their low growls joined the rustling leaves, a chorus of impending doom. Back! We need to go back, I shouted, pointing in the opposite direction of the forest. Hang on! He shifted the gear and we lurched backward, crashing through the trees, hoping not to collide with whatever hunted us. But as we sped away, my phone buzzed again. A message flashed on the screen. You're not alone. My breath hitched. I didn't know where to turn next, but I felt the weight of unseen eyes following us. The fear was no longer just in the forest. It had seeped into the truck with us, and we were not safe. Chapter 6. The Hunt Begins. The truck jolted as we tore backward, the tires skidding on the damp ground. I glanced at the ranger, his face pale as he gripped the steering wheel. He looked terrified, and that made me even more scared. This was no ordinary night or an ordinary camping trip. Something was hunting us. Faster, I yelled, my voice cracking. Every instinct told me to flee, but the fear of what lay behind us held me back. The ranger glanced in the rearview mirror. His eyes widened. They're coming, they're right behind us. I didn't need to look. I could feel it. The chill in the air thickened, prickling my skin. I leaned forward, my heart pounding in rhythm with the engine. If we didn't get out soon, there wouldn't be an us left. Just as we made a sharp turn, I caught a glimpse of movement in the darkness. A flash of shadow darted across the road. It was close enough that I could almost see its outline. I felt a scream rising in my throat but swallowed it down. We sped onward, branches scraping against the sides of the truck, but the forest was still closing in. We need to get to the main road, I shouted. We can't stay in the woods. The ranger nodded, focusing intensely on the path ahead. I'll try. Hang on. He slammed down on the accelerator and the truck lunged forward, Then came a loud thud and the vehicle lurched. My heart dropped. "What was that?" I gasped. "I think we hit something." He frantically turned the wheel, but the truck skidded dangerously. We were swallowed by darkness again, the headlights flickering as the engine sputtered. My stomach dropped, fear clawing at me like the things outside. "Get it going." Again, the engine gave a sputter, then died completely. Panic surged through me. "We're stuck." The ranger's voice trembled as he fumbled with the ignition. Nothing happened. He hit the steering wheel in frustration. "Maybe we can push it," I suggested, desperate, but my voice sounded weak even to my ears. Before we could act, a sound like nails on metal echoed through the night, the same sound that had paralyzed us before. It was closer now, almost right next to the truck. The woman beside me clutched my arm, her eyes wide with horror. "What do we do?" she cried, her composure cracking. My breath felt short. "We can't stay here. We have to get out." Just then I heard a noise from behind the truck, a heavy thump followed by a low growl that seemed to vibrate through the metal. Whatever was out there was both massive and furious. Then the ranger made a rash decision. "Open the door," he shouted. "What? Are you crazy?" I yelled back, but the door was already swinging open. With a mixture of fear and disbelief, I followed him out. The cold night air surrounded us as we stumbled away from the truck. That's when I saw it. Emerging from the tree line, a huge, shadowy figure lumbered toward us, its glowing eyes piercing through the fog. My heart raced. "Run!" I screamed, grabbing the woman's hand as we took off into the woods. I could hear the pounding footsteps behind us closing in fast, but something caught my eye, a flicker of light deeper in the trees, a steady glow that promised safety. Hope surged through me. "There! We need to get to that light!" With no sight of the truck behind us, I propelled myself forward, dragging the others behind me. If there were any chance of escape, we had to reach it, and fast. As the growls grew louder, I felt the weight of a new kind of fear settle in. Whatever was out there was not just predatory, it was determined. Then came a sudden silence, the sort that makes your skin crawl. I glanced back and they were gone. That moment of stillness was more terrifying than the chase. Ahead, the glow pulsed like a heartbeat, luring us closer. But as we sprinted toward it, something shifted in the shadows behind us. The hunt had only just begun. Chapter 7. The Beacon of Hope. The light flickered again, and I focused on it as we sprinted. I could hardly tell if it was real or just a figment of my imagination fueled by desperation. "Keep going," I urged, pulling the woman along. She stumbled slightly, but I kept her moving. We were running blind, branches whipping against our skin like angry whispers. But the promise of that light kept me from looking back. With every step, I could still hear the growls echoing in the woods, deep and resonant, as if they were warning others of our presence. My heart thudded in my chest both from fear and sheer exertion. Just as we were about to cross a small clearing, I finally let myself glance over my shoulder. The darkness was imposing, but the growls had faded. For a moment, I thought we might have lost it. "Where are we?" The woman's voice broke my focus. She was panting, her eyes scanning the trees frantically. "I don't know," I admitted, feeling both lost and guilty for not having a plan. "But we need to find that light. It can't be far." Ahead, the glow dimmed momentarily, and I felt panic rise again. "No, please," I whispered, willing it to return. But just as quickly it reappeared, brighter, more urgent. We pushed on, our breaths ragged as we neared the source of the light. I squinted into the distance and saw it. A cabin, aged and worn but undeniably a beacon in the darkness. "Over there," I pointed, my voice filled with renewed hope. We dashed toward it. The front door stood ajar, creaking slightly in the breeze. I hesitated just before crossing the threshold. My instincts screamed at me to stop, but my fear of whatever hunted us out there outweighed my caution. "Go inside," I urged, practically shoving the woman toward the entrance. We stumbled inside, and I whirled around to close the door behind us, slamming it shut with an urgency that echoed in the stillness. The cabin was dimly lit, shadows dancing over the wooden walls. A fireplace stood cold, and dust settled thickly over a table in the center. "We're safe, for now," I breathed, but my heart sank as a sense of unease crawled back in. I noticed a scattering of broken, rusted tools in one corner, and an eerie silence seemed to envelop us. I turned to the woman. "Do you think we can barricade the door?" She nodded, her eyes wide and glistening with a mix of fear and relief. We quickly grabbed anything we could find, old furniture, stacks of wood, and piled it against the door, our hands trembling. As we worked, I felt a shift in the atmosphere, as if the very air thickened with foreboding. "What if it comes here?" she whispered, her voice shaking. "Then we'll fight it. We can't let it take us," I replied, trying to sound brave. Just then, a noise came from outside. It was a thump, followed by a chilling growl. My stomach twisted. The monster had found us again. I pressed my back against the door, every muscle in my body tensed. "We need to find something we can use. Something to defend ourselves," I murmured, scanning the cabin. Before I could suggest where we might look, a sharp crack echoed out by the door. We froze, breathless. The sound was unlike anything I'd heard before. Sharp, hollow, and growing closer. And then I saw it. A shadowy figure looming just outside the window, peering in. My heart raced, and I knew the hunt was far from over. Our refuge was only beginning to unravel. Chapter 8. The shadows tread closer. The figure outside the window shifted, its outline blending with the night. My instinct screamed at me to move, to hide, but there was nowhere to go. I clutched the door tighter, feeling the wood beneath my grip splinter slightly from the pressure. "Did you see that?" the woman whispered, her voice quivering. I nodded, my throat dry as I scanned the room for anything that could help us. "Find something sharp," I urged. "A tool, anything." She darted toward the cluttered table, her hands rummaging through the dusty debris. I glanced again at the window, heart racing as the silhouette remained still, watching us. "Here!" she cried out, holding up a rusty knife. It looked useless, but at least it was something. Good. "Let's stay quiet," I said. "We can't let it know we're here." As we positioned ourselves near the door, another thump echoed outside, closer this time. My breath caught in my throat. Whatever it was testing our defenses. I couldn't see it, but I could feel its presence like a weight pressing against my chest. Then, the cracking of a branch signaled it was circling the cabin. I could hear the soft crunch of leaves underfoot as it moved. The woman's anxiety clawed at the edges of my resolve. "What if it gets in?" she whispered. "We have to be ready to fight," I said, though I wasn't sure how much of a fight we could muster. Just then the shadows danced in the corner of my eye again, moving closer to the front of the cabin. A soft scraping sound came next, a noise that sent chills down my spine. Something was trying to get in, finding purchase against the door. I pressed my shoulder harder against the wood, locking my gaze on the rusty knife in the woman's hand. In that moment of silence, my thoughts raced. What if we could get out through the back? What if we just waited it out until morning? But the growls grew louder, more insistent, and I could feel panic creeping in again. Then, my eyes darted to the fireplace. A few old logs lay scattered, charred but sturdy enough. "The fireplace," I whispered urgently. "If we light a fire, maybe it'll stay away." "What if it doesn't?" she asked, her fear rising. "Then it's our only shot," I replied, my voice steadying. "Help me gather those logs." We moved quickly, gathering the scraps and piling them in the fireplace. I hadn't seen matches or a lighter, but my desperation pushed me to look anyway. Just as I shifted behind the mantel, something clattered. A small tin fell to the floor with a metallic thud. "Please be—" I bent down to pick it up, and there it was, a half-full box of matches. My heart surged with a glimmer of hope as I waved it in the air for her to see. The next growl was closer than ever, a low rumble that filled the quiet cabin. I took a deep breath and struck a match, the sharp sound ringing out like a gunshot. The flame caught quickly, and I leaned it against the dry wood in the fireplace. Fire flickered to life, casting an orange glow that chased away some of the darkness. But then came the sound of splintering wood on the door. It felt like time slowed, the fire illuminating our fear. "Quick, keep it going," she urged as the shuddering strikes pressed ever harder against our only barrier. And then it dawned on me. There was no guarantee the fire would keep it away. The shadows stirred, and I realized this might only be the calm before the storm. That's when I heard the whisper, "Let me in." It wasn't just the wind. There was something else. Something pleading yet filled with menace. My heart dropped. I turned to the woman, eyes wide. We aren't alone. Chapter 9. Unsettling experiences from a camping trip in Appalachia that still leave me. Questioning. The whisper hung in the air, a low echo that sent shivers racing down my spine. All my instincts screamed at me to ignore it, to focus on the growing fire and the sounds outside. But the dark presence loomed larger, twisting the shadows around us. "Did you hear that?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "Yes," I replied, heart hammering in my chest. "We need to stay quiet." My grip tightened around the rusty knife, feeling its weight against my palm. Another crash reverberated from the door, and I worried it might give way at any moment. I exchanged a terrified glance with her. The flickering flames cast our silhouettes against the wooden walls, like desperate signals begging for rescue. Then, with a jarring clarity, I noticed something amiss. Among the logs I'd gathered, a distinct outline glinted in the firelight. I hesitated for a moment, then stepped closer, pulling it from the pile. A silver locket, tarnished and battered. "Look!" I exclaimed, showing it to her. The fire reflected in the metal, and a sense of dread crept over me. Who would leave something like this here? "What does it matter?" she replied, her eyes darting back to the door as another growl echoed outside. But I couldn't shake the feeling that this could be a clue, something connected to the dark presence outside. As I opened the locket, a small, faded photograph slipped out. I caught it before it fell, revealing a serene woman smiling softly, a stark contrast to the chaos surrounding us. My breath caught as I recognized the familiar features. This looks like someone I know. The woman's expression shifted sharply. "Do you think she's connected to whatever is out there?" I nodded slowly, even as a chill filled the cabin. "I need to know who she is." But before I could say more, the door shuddered violently, bolts rattling against the frame. Each hit felt like a countdown, urgency burning into my chest. "Put it down," she shouted. "Focus!" I snapped back to reality, the locket clattering to the floor. The flames leaped higher as if responding to the energy pulsing around us. Then we heard it again, this time louder, clearer. "Let me in." In that moment I realized this wasn't just a plea. It held a promise of something far worse. My mind raced as I tried to make sense of it. "Who would speak like that?" I asked, dread pooling in my stomach. "I don't want to find out," she screamed, moving toward the corner of the room. "What do we do?" No plan could save us now, but I had to try. "We hold our ground. We make as much noise as we can to scare it away. I'll grab the poker from the fire." Just as I turned, the door splintered open with a violent crash, revealing a figure cloaked in darkness, its eyes glowing with an unnatural light. Panic surged within me, and a primal instinct kicked in. "Run!" I shouted, but it was too late. As if driven by some unseen force, the figure lunged forward, trapping us in a whirl of shadow and terror. My heart sank. I'd never felt so trapped, so utterly powerless as I did in that moment, knowing we had succumbed to something far more menacing than I had ever imagined. Then everything went dark. The moment I regained consciousness, the air felt thick and heavy, a stifling silence pressing down on me like a fog. I blinked against the dim light filtering in from somewhere above. Confusion swirled around me. Where were we? What had happened? I sat up abruptly, panic washing over me when I caught sight of the woman on the floor nearby, still motionless. "Hey!" I called, scrambling toward her. I shook her gently, my heart racing as a dread clawed at my insides. Slowly her eyes fluttered open, confusion mirroring my own. "What? Where are we?" she murmured, looking around as if trying to piece together fragmented memories. "I don't know," I admitted, my voice hoarse. The cabin, our refuge, felt different. Shadows danced unsettlingly against the walls as if mocking us. I thought we were. The room began to feel more oppressive, like we were being watched, and that instinctual fear crept back up my spine. I scanned every corner, looking for signs of whatever it was that had attacked us. "The door," I remembered, relief flooding through me when I noticed it was still barricaded. But the sense of safety was fleeting. The air was thick with tension, as if something sinister was lurking just outside our vision. "We have to get out," I said firmly, pushing myself up and helping her stand. "Can you walk?" She nodded, albeit shakily. Together we moved towards the door, but I hesitated. Something felt wrong. Wait. I held back, glancing out through a gap in the wood. The woods were quiet, but it was that unnerving kind of silence, the absence of birds, the stillness of the wind. We might not be alone. "What do you mean?" she whispered, peering out beside me. I didn't know how to explain the feeling curling in my gut. It was a primal instinct that told me dangers lurked close by. Then out of the corner of my eye I spotted something, a flicker of movement among the trees. "Do you see that?" I asked, heart racing. "Yes," she replied, her voice trembling. But before we could react, shadows darted across the clearing outside, undulating in quick, jerking movements. I felt the knot in my stomach tighten, realizing we had to make a decision. On the count of 3, we bolt for the door, I decided, adrenaline surging. 1, 2. Before I could say 3, the door began to rattle violently, shaking against the barricade as if something were trying to force its way in. "Our only chance is to find the back exit," I hollered, adrenaline coursing through my veins. "Quick!" Without hesitation, we turned towards the rear of the cabin, where I hoped there'd be some way out. The room felt smaller with every second, the growling sound from outside intensifying. We burst through the back door into the damp chill of twilight, and for a moment the stillness around us enveloped. "Which way?" she yelled, fear tinging her voice. "Follow me. We gotta stick together," I shouted back, scanning the dense greenery. Trees loomed on all sides, their branches like skeletal fingers reaching out, but as we plunged deeper into the woods, I felt the weight of that unseen something again, a heaviness that whispered of deeper dangers lying in wait. The laughter, distant yet familiar, echoed again. It sent shivers cascading down my spine, and the very air around me felt like an early warning of dread. We ran, fluidly through the undergrowth, every second feeling longer than the last. With each footfall, my mind raced. I thought of the woman in the locket, the strange connection to this darkness. For every question I wished to answer, there seemed to be a new terror waiting to rise. "We can't just keep running blindly," she gasped. Her voice didn't sit right, the concern lacing it going up a notch. "What if we lead it to others?" "Then we fight," I blurted, unwilling to voice the fear tightening around my throat. "We find a way to confront it, we have to." But with those words, I felt my own resolve waver. Deep down, I was uncertain of whether this darkness was a lingering spirit or something much worse, a natural terror cloaked in myth and the known fears of the woods. We pushed onward, every rustle behind us like a promise of pursuit. My phone buzzed again, echoing the same persistent, unbearable dread. I fumbled to pull it out, desperately hoping to drown the whispers in a different kind of sound, only to feel my blood run cold as I read the newest message. "You shouldn't have left the cabin." A chill coursed through me. My fingers shook, fear pooling heavily in my chest. The shadows were closing in. My feet quickened, but the forest, a living entity, seemed to blur into a struggle against us. And then, as we stumbled forward, I locked eyes with an ancient tree, gnarled and massive, with markings carved deep into the bark, sudden realization crashing into me like a wave. Perhaps others had come here too, others who had both begged and paid the price for their curiosity. "Let's keep moving," I urged, the gnawing uncertainty still lingering. Even if we escaped now, questions lingered like echoes in the woods, haunting me every step back toward mundanity. Perhaps this story was far from over, or maybe it had just begun. I found myself wondering if I'd ever truly escape what lay in those depths, or if the darkness would follow, unfurling gently in the corners of my thoughts. Because somewhere in that wilderness, concealed in the stories told only in whispers, I sensed the truth remained, to be discovered, or perhaps forever lost.